Welcome. Welcome, everyone. This is exciting. Welcome to Parkside Chats. We'll be getting started shortly. And in the meantime, if you can introduce yourself in the chat, we would love to see who is with us today. Wow, love to see it. Hey, and as people are still coming in, I would like to just show you how to submit a question if you have any questions for our guest speaker today. We're gonna bring up a slide, and it's just using the Q&A at the bottom. Perfect. Yes. So just click Q&A button and type your question in that window. And this is for any questions you may have, especially for our guest speaker. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and let's get started. So here is a quick overview of today's session. We'll keep things moving along. This session should be under an hour and no longer than an hour. So we should wrap things up by 1 p.m. Next slide. So I am Shakayla Leonard. I am your host today. I am the Member Stewardship Manager, and I've been with California State Parks Foundation for 8 years. It has been an amazing journey. My role here is to make sure that our members feel valued, acknowledged, and also I help steward experiences for our members in the state parks, whether that's in person or virtually. So that way members can connect and engage from wherever they are. So nice to meet everyone. A little bit about California State Parks Foundation. California State Parks Foundation was founded in 1969 by William Penn Mott Jr. to be a partner to the California State Parks in protecting and preserving the California State Park system. We are backed by 70,000 members. We have raised more than 300 million to support the California State Parks Foundation. Yes, we are an independent member-supported nonprofit. So our members and our donors' generosity is what makes everything that we do possible. So thank you all again. And our mission is simple but powerful, and that is to protect and preserve the California State Parks system for the benefit of all. And a little bit about Parkside Chats. Parkside Chats is a new virtual event series. And the goal here is to bring together park lovers, experts, and community voices. We will offer insights on conservation, history, climate resilient, and park access. So it's a way to stay connected to California State Parks, again, from wherever you are. And that format can be webinar or virtual tour. And without further ado, I'm so excited to have our guest speaker today, Taylor Moore. Taylor Moore is a museum curator at the State Indian Museum State Historic Park in Sutter's Fort State Historic Park. She is the first generation to graduate from CSU Sacramento. In 2023, she became the first Native curator for these two sites. How amazing is that? And she works with tribal practitioners to return belongings. And without further ado, I want to introduce Taylor.
Hi, Shakayla. Thank you so much for the introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Taylor Moore, and I'm the museum curator for the State Indian Museum and Sutter's Fort. I've worked for Parks for about 7 years. It was my first job out of college, and I just fell in love with our parks, the museums, the cultural resources that we steward. Um, I work out of a collection repository where we house collections from all over the state. It is here I have gained a deep knowledge of preventative conservation, preservation methods, and care of historic facilities and museum objects with specialized knowledge of museum collection practices and procedures. Over the last 4 to 5 years, I began to focus my work on Native American collections and working with tribes. And I'm so excited to be here with you all for this Parkside Chat. Today, I will be focusing on how both the State Indian Museum and Sutter's Fort are honoring Indigenous heritage and the changes we are making to do so. For both sites, we are in a moment of transition. First, I will speak to the State Indian Museum and how we are following NAGPRA compliance and actively repatriating items back to tribes, which brings me to my first slide. NAGPRA and repatriation. Some questions you might have are, what are these and what do they have to do with the State Indian Museum? NAGPRA is the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act that was passed in 1990. This is a federal law that grants tribal sovereignty and control over Native American funerary objects, sacred objects, or objects of cultural patrimony that are in museums or federal agencies. Because the State Indian Museum stewards Native American belongings, we fall under this law and must comply to these regulations. In January 2024, duty of care was passed, which is a clause of the NAGPRA regulation that establishes an increased requirements for tribal consent regarding the storage, research, and exhibition of Native American cultural belongings. It requires free, prior, and informed consent from tribal communities and individuals, creating a mutual relationship between tribes, museum, and educational institutions. It grants the rights for Native American belongings to be reunited with lineal descendants, rightful owners, and culturally affiliated communities. For museums to put up new exhibits, they must consult with tribes on what is appropriate for display. The current exhibits that are on display at the State Indian Museum today are a result of consultations that took place back in the 80s. However, NAGPRA, Duty of Care Clause, stipulates that consultation should be an ongoing process, and therefore the State Indian Museum must continue to engage in up-to-date consultations with tribes about exhibits. Through this work, it is likely that repatriation will be the outcome of some of these consultations. So repatriation is the process of returning items, including but not limited to ancestral remains, sacred or cultural objects, to lineal descendants and tribes. The State Indian Museum still contains many cultural items that are precious to Native American communities. We work alongside and support the Tribal Affairs Program, as well as the NAGPRA program, to help identify and return cultural belongings. Beyond these requirements, the State Indian Museum is repatriating items because of our shared ethics. It is the right thing to do. There is a long history of unethical museum acquisitions, such as purchasing ethnographic and archaeological materials from amateur archaeologists, grave robbing, stealing, looting, or items that were sold under duress. We recognize the disturbance that has been caused by these actions, and we want to help create change. There has been an imbalance of power between institutions, museums, and tribes, and these laws aim to give tribes back their autonomy. So currently, the State Indian Museum is repatriating feathered baskets, regalia, and ceremonial instruments to California tribes. And while we are actively participating in repatriation efforts, I am often removing belongings off of display per tribal request. This has been leaving a lot of empty cases in the museum, which is why we have created a new exhibit. So next slide, please. The exhibit is titled Welcome Home, a Celebration, which was installed into the museum a couple months ago. Next slide. Thank you. This exhibit seeks to educate the public about NAGPRA and its impacts on the state Indian museums. The goal of this exhibit is to not only present the truth of the history that led to NAGPRA, but also communicate the joy and empowerment of repatriation. The first panel to the left briefly reviews the history as well as the activism that led to the establishment of NAGPRA laws. The second panel, which is the darker brown one, describes the repatriation work we are doing. We also have a QR code that visitors can scan, which will take them to the State Parks NAGPRA page. There, they can see additional information and how to contact the NAGPRA coordinator if tribes are interested in consultation. Empty cases in a museum can leave the impression that we are being neglectful stewards, which is exactly the opposite. If anything, we have empty cases because we are doing our job and repatriating belongings back to the tribes. To address the empty case issue in the museum, we have developed a generic silhouette of items that can be placed on empty mounts. These silhouettes are meant to be placeholders and add an interactive element to this NAGPRA exhibit. If you look to the top right image, we have a generic basket silhouette. We wanted to make sure that there were no identifying characteristics of the removed item and to respect the tribe's privacy. Each silhouette will have a phrase written on it, and this one reads, "I am a feathered basket, I am on my journey home." And then below the basket silhouette, we have a small panel, which is in the darker brown, and it gives information about the NAGPRA panels if they haven't seen it, and it will always pose a question to the visitor. This question reads, "What do you and your family value?" It is our hope through this interactive element that this exhibit can foster an empathetic connection with visitors. The questions will vary as more silhouettes we place within the museum. For instance, the image below this one, it's a clapper stick. And this question reads, "What objects connect you with your family history?" These questions are meant to invite the viewer to connect their own life experiences with the exhibit's content. How would you feel if your family heirloom was ripped away from your family and put on display without your consent or permission? The repatriation process can be complex and bring up a lot of difficult emotions, but it can also be cathartic and uplifting. We really wanted to reiterate how repatriating items back to the tribes is a positive thing, which is why our exhibit is titled Welcome Home, a celebration as we welcome items being welcomed home. Next slide, please. So last month, the State Indian Museum completed a repatriation with Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians. This was the museum's first repatriation in over a decade, and some of the repatriated items were obtained as early as 1880 by a private collector before being donated to state parks. Others were purchased in 1960 by the state for display at the museum. Overall, I believe it took around 11 months to complete. It was a lot of hard work, and my team and I spent countless hours combing through catalog cards, inventories, database records to compile reports for the tribe to review. But when this day finally arrived, it was such an honor to be a part of. Cultural items like regalia or baskets are integral to Indigenous culture, identity, and connect the community to their ancestors. These items are a part of our history, our lineage. These belongings are not artifacts that can be placed in a museum. They are family. They're my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my cousin, my uncle, who made these items. It is not a basket, but it is medicine. It is something that is a part of you. It's your ancestors. It's that piece that ties you to your family, and it's missing. It has been pulled away from you and your family and then placed into a museum system that has created barriers, rules, and regulation where it dictates when or how you see your belongings. In Big Valley's case, some of these items have been away from the tribe for over 100 years, and that is a long time to be separated from your family. I am in a really unique situation where I am Native and I'm in this role where I'm able to assist in the return of belongings back to tribes. I am so honored and grateful to be in this position. And this day was a culmination of all the hard work and decades-long fight to have these items returned back to their tribe. And I hope that all the tribes who have felt this loss, that they can feel whole again through repatriation, that they can get their family back and begin to heal. I'll read a quote that the chairman said on this day. And he said, "It is an honor to be able to bring home items that our ancestors have touched and held and put sweat and their life into creating. It is a real blessing to be able to do that because we never got to know these ancestors in person. Through our oral history, we know who they are, when they were in our community, what they did, whether it is for our ceremonies or just in our families. It is an honor to have these things come home, however long it took, whatever work was needed. They have a living spirit, and they have been gone from their homeland for so long that when they come home, they're not going to recognize it. They know that it is their family they are coming home to. We are greeting them in the best way that we know how. We welcome them." And these images on the slide truly captures the joy and happiness that was present in the room that day. It was heartwarming to see these belongings returned and reunite with their family and then make their way back home again. And like most museums of Native American culture nationwide, the State Indian Museum is in a moment of transition. It is a beautiful moment because we can grow and change, and we look forward to more tribal collaboration in the future and uplifting Native voices in our communities. And this change is not only happening at the State Indian Museum, but it is happening at Sutter's Fort as well, which brings me to my next slide. Sutter's Fort was built between 1840 and 1844 and played a significant role in several historical events, including Mexican-era Rancho period in California. It played a pivotal role in overland migration to California by wagon, the Bear Flag Revolt, the Mexican-American War, the rescue of the Donner Party, and discovery of gold, which rapidly led to the California Gold Rush. The fort fell to ruin, but was later reconstructed between 1891 and 1895 into what you see today. This is both a historic site as well as a museum, and the fort has shaped the popular memory of California's history, and in the past has been viewed as a memorial to California pioneers, honoring those who participated in the colonization of California, which ultimately contributed to the displacement and dehumanization of Native communities. The reconstructed fort that you see today is situated on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Miwok, Maidu, and Nisenan peoples, who have inhabited the region since time immemorial. But today, the fort offers an unprecedented opportunity for building more truthful narratives about the state's past. Next slide. Thank you. The general plan is a document that effectively guides the park's management, development, and interpretation. For the fort, we were locked in time between 1839 to 1850, and these years spoke to John Sutter's life, the rise, the fall, the reconstruction of the fort as a pioneer memorial. It provided a narrow perspective of California's early history, which left out Native tribes whose ways of life were fundamentally changed by the fort and subsequent westward expansion. 2020 sparked a lot of change. The Department of Parks and Recreation committed to reassessing historic narratives through the re-examining of our past initiative, helped our team reshape the fort's image. Our district staff, as well as consultation with local tribal partners, developed the 2022 Interpretation Master Plan, or IMP, for Sutter's Fort, with the goal of guiding the creation of interpretive experiences that provide inclusive and accurate explorations of history. This new IMP represents a new chapter for the fort by including Indigenous experiences, history of the fort, an analysis of its lasting impacts and its role in California's complicated and sometimes dark history. The purpose of this amendment to the general plan is to update the themes, goals, and strategies for interpretation at Sutter's Fort. To support the implementation of this IMP, this amendment removes the restriction on the interpretive approaches and allows for greater flexibility for the visitor experiences that encompass a broader historical perspective of the fort. Several areas within the general plan have been updated to reflect a shift in interpretive focus and historic inclusivity. Next slide. Thank you. The IMP identifies 11 interpretive goals, each with objectives and implementation strategies to accomplish these goals. And I'll just highlight a couple. To represent an inclusive, complex, and accurate history of Sutter's Fort role in the colonization of California. To explore the changes California catalyzed by Sutter's Fort, including the consequences of those changes on Native people, on Native land over time. Promote stewardship of Sutter's Fort rooted in the values of ongoing learning, truthful representations of the past, and a diversity of historical perspectives. To cultivate an inclusive visitor experience by removing barriers for engagement and encouraging the involvement of underserved and underrepresented audiences. To explore the effects of colonial commerce and industry on Indigenous life, land, and resources. And lastly, to enable staff and volunteers to deliver high-quality, thematic, interpretive services focused on inclusion, complexity, and accuracy. So the mission of the fort is to create a laboratory of learning to empower all visitors to discover an inclusive, complex, and accurate history of Sutter's Fort and California. Next slide. When I'm giving a tour, I often use the metaphor that both the State Indian Museum and Sutter's Fort are going through a metamorphosis, which is true. Each of these museums are growing, they're changing, and transitioning into a better version of itself. There has been such dedication and a conscious effort to ensure that we are doing not only right by our tribal partners, but to our visitors and those school children who visit our parks every year. I want to end this by stating this work cannot be done alone. Such change has transpired through the dedication of our amazing guides, interpreters, and cultural resource division team. And I'm one person, a part of this amazing team who has assisted in these changes at our park sites. And I am excited that I can share some of our work with you all today. So thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Taylor. That was just amazing. And I've visited both parks, and I am so excited to get back to visit the new exhibit. One thing that really stood out to me is really that perspective as the items being family members. And so they deserve to be back with their family members. And so I just love that about the presentation. It's just amazing. And I've learned so much. And again, thank you. And right now we'll go into our Q&A session. Okay. Okay. So first question, what will happen to the State Indian Museum if everything is repatriated?
Well, that's a good question. Just because, you know, we have to change how we view the museum system. And if anything, this will open up more collaboration with tribes, partnerships with tribes, and hopefully that it's Native-led in the museum, and that we're not speaking for the tribes, but they're helping, create the exhibit, what would they like to talk about, what's appropriate to talk about. So things like that.
Thank you. And Another question is, are the Indigenous people who are represented in the museum okay with the word Indian being a part of the name for the museum?
That one it can vary. You know, some people are really for it, and others would rather prefer like Indigenous or Native American. I think it's specific to each person, but it does pop up in a lot of conversations.
Yeah, yeah, it's a question I've heard being at the museum myself,
Yeah.
and I've heard different responses.
Mm-hmm.
So, how long does it usually take for an object to be identified and repatriated? Sorry, I keep saying that word.
No, no, you're fine.
Wrong.
Well, it really depends. I think with Big Valley, that was probably one of the faster repatriations I've heard of 11 months. Granted, that still took a lot of time. One report took my team roughly 200 hours to complete with all the investigation work that we had to do into the collection history. Other times it takes years, unfortunately, which is very valid for tribes to be very upset by this because you see your belongings and you want them with you, but barriers, things like that, meeting dates, it kind of drags out this process. But I know we have a really devoted and dedicated NAGPRA team here at state parks, and they've really made sure that we have processes in place and that there's a system and that hopefully we can do faster repatriations.
It's great to hear.
Mhm.
So let's see some other questions. Okay, this is a good one. So, how can lessons learned at these two parks be applied to other state parks in California?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, continue on.
And I'm curious about the ongoing use of the term um, Indian. Sorry, I think these are two separate ones. But let's just
Mhm.
start with that one. How can lessons learned at these two parks be applied to other state parks in California?
I hope it can spark change and really allow for like a critical review of what's going on at these parks. Definitely consultation's a big part of that and making sure you're talking to um, the right groups and communities to make sure that what you're talking about is appropriate, and things like that. We're definitely growing and learning ourselves. You know, it really took some inward reflecting to see like, what are we talking about? Who have we spoken to? Is this okay to have on display? That's really helped us grow and change. And I think sometimes you have to have those hard conversations in order to realize what you need to change. And my team and I are always trying to visit different museums and art galleries to see what they're doing. And I think we can draw a lot of inspiration from other departments or institutions. So a lot of learning and a lot of growing for sure. Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll do a couple of more. Let's see. Will the museum present exhibits of the work that Native people are creating today and possibly performance events?
I really hope so. Um, You know, we're a living culture. We're in the present. We're here and we're thriving. We're not people of the past. So even the collaborations we currently do on site, which Basket Weavers Day, where we have weavers from all over come, they do weaving demonstrations, then they talk about how to gather and things like that. We also have Acorn Day, where a community member comes in and she shows us how to process acorn. So we do have those interactive elements. And I think we're always looking for that collaboration with our tribal partners within the museum as well. Mhm.
Great, great. Thank you. And so another question is, I live in a new building community on the Nisanen and
Oh, Onisanon. Yeah, yes.
Nisanan land and
Mhm.
have observed grinding stones on the sides of the trails. It is best to collect these and donate them or leave them where they are.
Leave them where they are. Don't pick them up. um, if anything, you should be contacting the tribes in the area, but they're busy as well. So you could reach out to, universities and say, hey, what should happen? I found this, but don't remove things from the site. That's yes. But it is tricky because, you do want to take it to help, but sometimes it's more helpful if you leave that item there as well.
Perfect. And then just two more questions. The first one is, what will happen to the State Indian Museum if all the objects are repatriated?
We did cover, I believe that was the first question, was it
Sorry,
not?
I'm sorry, we
No,
did answer
it's
that.
okay. It's a good question to ask. Um,
Um,
yeah.
the last question I will is, I just want to know, what do you want to leave everyone with this presentation? What is the one bring home?
Mm. I think to visit state parks. I think a lot of our parks are really growing and changing. We're in a really unique time where a lot of things are getting brought up and we're discussing it and we're not shying away from things and we're meeting things head on. And it's definitely reflected in our park site. There's a lot of beautiful interpretation that's going on. The collaborations we have with tribal communities is beautiful. And they're really unique places to visit. And I always encourage everyone to visit state parks. So
Thank you. Well, again, thank you so much, Taylor. And this brings us to the end of our program. Please follow us on social and share your thoughts on today's discussion. And if you are already not a member, please support state parks and join us at calparks.org/join. And just to highlight some of the benefits of being a member, we do offer a 10% camping discount to most of the state parks. We do have the California State Parks Foundation calendar. And of course, you have special invites to in-person events. I look forward to more Parkside Chats, and I hope to see you all in person at an event. And again, thank you again, Taylor. Until next time.